They didn't fall apart when you cried. They didn't fall apart when you begged. They fell apart the moment you said nothing. Let that one hit. Let it cut through the noise, because that's the moment they lost the game they thought they were winning. Not when you poured your heart out, not when you pleaded for answers. No, my friends, they started falling the second you went silent. That's when they knew something was different. That's when the roles flipped. Because nothing is more terrifying to someone who feeds off control than a person who refuses to react. That quiet, that space you gave them, it wasn't weakness, it was transformation. You see, folks, we live in a world where everyone is always talking, posting, venting, explaining, trying so hard to prove they matter. But you chose silence, and that silence, oh, that silence was loud. Louder than any argument, louder than any "I miss you" text. It echoed in their minds, made them uncomfortable, made them wonder what went wrong, and more importantly, made them realize you're not the same anymore. Because silence isn't empty. It's full of answers they were hoping to never face. Let me paint it for you. Imagine a magician who's been pulling the same trick for years. They know your reactions. They know when you'll clap, when you'll laugh, when you'll lean in. But suddenly one day, you don't move. You just sit there. No applause, no gasp, no attention. The magician panics because without your reaction, their trick means nothing. That's what your silence did. You stopped feeding their ego. You stopped giving them the emotional reaction they used to survive on. And without your energy, they started crumbling. Slowly, quietly, secretly. Here's the truth they don't want you to know. It wasn't your love that made them feel powerful. It was your need for them. And when you walked away, when you didn't explain, when you gave them nothing to push against, their illusion of control vanished. As Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injustice." You didn't stoop, you didn't chase, you didn't cry for a bare minimum apology. You rose in silence, and that silence, that was your revenge. Not out of hate, but out of pure, powerful peace. Let me be real with you, it's not easy. There were nights you wanted to break the silence, to say just one more thing, to get closure, to remind them of everything they were losing. But my friends, closure is not something they give you, it's something you give yourself. And the moment you understand that, you become unstoppable. Because what hurts the most isn't your words, it's your absence. It's the unanswered messages, the quiet story you never explained, the glow-up they had to witness from a distance. That's the storm they never saw coming. And hey, I know it's kind of funny in a dark way. They expected fireworks when they left. They thought you'd beg. They thought you'd collapse. But all they got was silence, like pressing play on a drama and realizing the screen is blank, empty, and they're left alone with their own regrets. Rewinding memories they didn't value until now. So here's what I want you to do. Breathe deep, smile, because you didn't lose anything. You found yourself. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was your sword. And now it's time to own it. Say it with me. My silence is power. Write it in the comments. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that you are done explaining, done chasing, done breaking. Hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me, because what's coming next is going to make them wish they never underestimated your silence. Number 1, the moment you went silent, they lost control. Silence is not empty. It's full of the answers they don't want to hear. Let that echo in your mind for a second, my friends. Because the moment you stopped speaking, the moment you gave them nothing to react to, nothing to decode, nothing to manipulate, that's when the panic crept in. That's when their power began to slip through their fingers. Not when you screamed, not when you cried, but when you went quiet. See, most people aren't scared of your anger. They're scared of your peace. They're not shaken by your emotions. They're shaken by your absence. And when you finally stopped explaining yourself, That's when they started losing control. Picture this, a calm motion, quiet, still, beautiful. Someone walks along the edge, skipping stones, feeling powerful, unbothered, thinking nothing will change. But beneath that calm surface, something is brewing, something deep, something unpredictable. Then suddenly, without warning, that calm turns into a storm, waves crashing, sky darkening. The same person who thought they were in control now gasps for air, wondering where it all went wrong. That's what happened when you went silent. You were the calm they took for granted until you became the storm they couldn't predict. And you know what? That silence wasn't sudden. It was building. Every ignored message, every half-hearted apology, every time they dismissed your feelings, thinking you'd always stick around. You weren't being quiet. You were observing, learning, calculating, until one day you chose to stop explaining, stop pleading, stop reacting. And that, my friends, was the shift. That's the part they didn't see coming. Now they sit with questions, endless, unanswered questions. Why aren't they reaching out? Are they seeing someone else? Did they stop caring? Are they really done? That silence you gave them became a mirror, and what they see in it, they don't like. Because in your silence, they're forced to confront their actions. They can't twist your words. They can't rewrite the story. All they have now is the truth. And the truth is they messed up, but their ego won't let them admit it. Here's the lie they live by. They thought your love meant you'd never leave. They assumed that no matter how they acted, you'd always explain yourself, always argue back, always give them a reaction to feed on. But silence starves the ego, and nothing drives a manipulative person crazier than the realization that they no longer control the narrative. They didn't expect you to be this strong. They didn't think you had it in you because they mistook your kindness for weakness, your loyalty for desperation. But now they're learning the hard way. Stoicism isn't cold, it's composed. It's the kind of power that doesn't scream, doesn't chase, doesn't beg. It simply walks away and lets the other person unravel on their own. I get it. It wasn't easy. There were nights you stared at your phone, fighting every urge to send one last message. You wondered if silence made you heartless, if walking away made you the villain. But let me ask you this. Were they losing sleep over how they made you feel? Were they questioning their silence when they ignored your pain? No, they expected you to keep chasing. They counted on it. And now that you've gone still, they don't know how to function. Silence takes strength, emotional discipline, and self-respect. It's not about revenge. It's about recovery. It's about reclaiming your energy and putting it where it belongs, back into you. You see, in a world that pressures us to respond instantly, to prove our worth, to argue our side, silence is rebellion. And that rebellion, that's your healing. Let's make it clear, you're not being petty, you're not playing games, you're just done playing theirs because you've realized something powerful. Your peace is too expensive to trade for temporary attention. And the people who truly value you, they won't need to be shocked into noticing your silence. They'll listen when you speak. They'll care before you walk away. But those who didn't, let them sit with it. Let them feel the absence they created. You're not here to teach someone how to treat you anymore. That was the old you, the one who thought love was earned through suffering. The new you, the one that's rising, knows love doesn't require proving. It recognizes, respects. And if they couldn't see your value when you were loud with your effort, they'll be haunted by it now that you're quiet in your power. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but what if they still don't care? What if my silence means nothing? My friends, let me tell you something. The loudest scream you'll ever make is the one where you don't say a word. They'll feel it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it will hit. And when it does, it won't be because you reminded them. It'll be because time reminded them. time, silence, and your absence. Those three will do what your words never could. So take a breath, stand tall. You've already made the boldest move of all. You chose yourself. And now you're watching from a distance as they try to solve a puzzle they broke with their own hands. Say it with me. I choose silence. Write it in the comments. Show them, show yourself. Show the world that you are no longer giving your energy to people who treat you like an option. Hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me, because what's coming next is going to make sure they never forget the day you went silent. Number 2, people don't miss you when you're loud. They miss you when you're gone. That's the truth nobody tells you. That's the part they don't want to admit, not even to themselves. Because when you're loud, when you're present, when you're constantly proving, chasing, calling, texting, reminding them how much you care, they don't feel grateful. They feel powerful. They feel entitled. And that's the lie they start living in, that they can treat you any way they want and you'll still stay, that you'll always come back, that you'll never leave. But the second you vanish, the second you disappear without explanation, that's when the silence hits different. That's when your absence becomes louder than anything you ever said. See, folks, we've been sold a lie, a damaging one, that love is measured by how loud you fight for someone, that the more you chase, the more you prove you care, that if you stay, no matter how you're treated, it means your love is real. But let me flip that lie for you. Real love doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't beg to be chosen. Real love knows when to walk away. And here's the hard part. Sometimes walking away is the loudest declaration of self-respect you'll ever make. Imagine this. A song plays on repeat. At first, you love it, you sing along. But then you hear it every hour, every day. Eventually, you stop noticing it. You tune it out. It fades into the background. You forget how much it once moved you. But the moment it's gone, the moment the music stops and silence replaces it, you notice. You miss it. You wonder where it went. That's how people treat your presence when they think it's permanent. They tune you out. They forget the value you bring until you're gone. They don't miss the one who's always there. They miss the one who disappears. Because absence is haunting, presence is comfortable. But absence shakes the foundation. It makes them wonder, where did they go? Why did they stop trying? Do they still care? Have they moved on? And those questions, that's where the obsession begins. Not when you're proving yourself, but when you stop. And let me tell you something, my friends. Obsession doesn't grow in noise. It grows in silence, in the stillness of your absence, in the gap you used to fill. You don't become unforgettable by being available all the time. You become unforgettable by becoming rare, by being the one who gave your best and then took it away, not as a threat, not as a tactic, but as a decision, because you finally realized you were doing too much for someone who wasn't doing enough. They didn't appreciate the good morning texts, the emotional check-ins, the late-night calls. They got used to your effort. They got used to your loyalty. They expected your presence like a sunrise, daily, automatic, guaranteed. But now that it's dark, now that you've pulled back your light, that's when they start to feel cold. And I know it hurts. I know you want them to notice while you're still there, while you're still giving, while your heart is still open. But sometimes they don't see your value until they can't reach you anymore. And that's not your fault. That's their lesson. They needed to lose you to understand what they had. Because while you were trying to be louder, more loving, more constant, what you really needed was to be missed. And nothing makes someone miss you like your silence, your peace, your distance. You weren't wrong for loving loudly. You weren't wrong for trying. But now it's time to love yourself just as loudly, to give yourself the presence you were begging someone else to notice. Because chasing someone who's okay with losing you will only make you lose yourself, and you've done enough of that already. So let the silence speak. Let your absence echo. Let them sit in the space where your voice used to be. And don't be surprised when they come back, wondering where you went, wondering why they can't stop thinking about you. Because people don't miss what's loud. They miss what disappears without a trace. Say it with me. I don't chase, I disappear. Write it in the comments. Show them, show yourself. Show the world that you're no longer here to beg for love, to over-explain your worth, to fight for a spot in someone's life. Number 3, silence forces them to hear their own thoughts. That's the part they didn't prepare for, not the silence itself, but what that silence reveals. See, my friends, as long as you were talking, they had a shield, a distraction, a reason to keep dodging the truth. Your words, your reactions, your attempts to make them understand gave them something to focus on besides their own reflection. But the moment you went quiet, the moment you stopped explaining, stopped arguing, stopped chasing, that's when the real noise started. Not outside of them, but inside. Because silence is not the absence of sound, it's the presence of self. And for someone who's been running from the truth, that kind of silence is brutal. When you were loud, they could blame you. They're too emotional, they're overreacting, they just want attention. But now that you're silent, there's no one left to point fingers at, no one to argue with, no one to distract them from the guilt creeping in. And let me tell you, guilt is a quiet monster. It doesn't show up when the world is busy. It shows up when everything stops, when the noise fades, when there's nothing left but the echo of their own decisions. Imagine it like this. A person has been walking through life with music blasting in their headphones. They've been ignoring every warning sign, every red flag, every consequence. But then suddenly the music cuts off. The world goes quiet, and now they hear it all. The steps they took, the people they hurt, the things they ignored. That silence doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like punishment. That's exactly what happens when you remove yourself from someone's life and give them space to sit with themselves. You don't even have to say a word. Your silence says it all. And here's what they hear in that silence. I pushed them away. I took them for granted. I never thought they'd stop trying. I kept thinking they'd always come back. Why didn't I just treat them better when I had the chance? These are the thoughts that start running wild in their minds. Slow at first, then louder, then constant. And the irony, these are the very thoughts they used to drown out with distractions, with rebounds, with ego, with friends, with work. But silence cuts through all of that. It doesn't ask for permission. It just shows up and starts talking. And they don't like what it says because the truth they avoided starts to speak. The lies they told themselves don't sound so convincing anymore. I didn't need them. I did nothing wrong. They'll come back eventually. It all starts to crack under the weight of reality, because every time they pick up their phone and don't see your name, every time they scroll and see you living without them, every time they remember a moment where they could have done better, they feel it. That guilt, that ache, that sick realization that maybe they were the problem all along. And this is where your power truly shines. You didn't force anything. You didn't send guilt-tripping texts. You didn't beg them to change. You just went silent, and your silence became their mirror. It reflected everything they refused to see when you were still speaking. And now they can't look away. And I know what some of you are thinking. What if they don't feel anything? What if they never care? My friends, don't mistake their silence for peace. People can look calm on the outside and be falling apart inside. Just because they're not reaching out doesn't mean they're not hurting. Just because they're pretending to move on doesn't mean the silence isn't getting to them. You're not seeing the panic, but it's there. You're not hearing the late-night thoughts, but they're loud. And silence is always louder in the dark. Let them sit with it. Let the silence do what your words never could. Because while they're sitting there, hoping for a sign from you, wondering why you've gone so quiet, doubting their own decisions, You're healing, you're rising, you're becoming stronger in the very space they thought would break you. And that contrast, that's what makes the silence even louder. You've taken your power back, not with noise, not with anger, not with revenge, but with restraint. That's real strength, that's real stoic energy. To let them drown in the silence they once gave you, to let the guilt they once buried rise to the surface. You didn't need to make them feel it. Time, silence, and their own conscience are doing that for you. Say it with me. My silence speaks truth. Write it in the comments. Show them, show yourself. Show the world that you are no longer filling the silence with explanations for people who never listened. Number 4, they didn't expect you to have that kind of power. He who does not react cannot be controlled. Epictetus. And that, my friends, is where everything changed. Because they never expected you to have that kind of power. They thought silence was surrender, that your quiet meant defeat, that you stopped speaking because you were broken, because you didn't know what else to say. But what they didn't see, what they never even considered, was that your silence wasn't weakness, it was your transformation. It was the moment you stopped playing their game and started mastering your own. You see, people like that rely on your reaction. It's their fuel, the way they provoke you, confuse you, push your buttons, and then sit back like it's a game. That's control. That's how they hold power, not through love, not through respect, but through chaos. They test you, then twist the story. When you finally explode, they call you too emotional, too sensitive, too much, when really you were just exhausted from being disrespected. But when you went silent, when you stopped feeding the fire, that's when their whole strategy fell apart. Imagine a puppeteer pulling strings. Every reaction you gave, anger, sadness, confusion, it made the puppet dance. But suddenly the strings go slack. No more dancing, no more movement. The puppeteer yanks harder, but nothing happens. That's what happened when you stopped reacting. You cut the strings, you took yourself off the stage, and now they're left holding pieces of a game they can't play anymore because you're no longer a part of it. Let's be honest, it wasn't easy. There were moments you wanted to scream. You wanted to text paragraphs to say, "How could you treat me like that?" To make them understand the damage they caused. But that's the trap. That's the illusion. They want you explaining. They want you emotional because your emotions make them feel important. Your pain makes them feel powerful. And when you stopped giving them that, you became dangerous in the best way possible. Stoicism isn't about being cold. It's about being calm. It's not about not feeling. It's about not reacting. And that's what you mastered. You didn't deny your pain. You processed it in silence. You used that silence to rebuild yourself, to reflect, to grow. And that kind of growth, that quiet inward strength, it terrifies people who can't control you anymore. Because once you no longer need their validation, once you're no longer triggered by their absence or attention, you're free. And free people can't be manipulated. They thought you'd always fight to stay, that you'd never walk away without one last word. But this time, you didn't beg, you didn't prove, you didn't explain. You let them wonder. You let them sit in the silence and question everything. And now, guess what? They're not just confused, they're shaken, because you became something they never imagined, untouchable. Let me tell you something important. Control isn't about who talks louder. It's about who walks away first and never looks back. You're not the same person who needed closure. You're not the same soul who tried to fix everything. You're the one who saw the storm, stepped out of it, and realized you were the calm all along. And they mistook your peace for passivity. They never saw the strength it took to hold back, to say nothing, to reclaim your dignity without a single word. So now, let them wonder. Let them try to figure out how they lost someone who used to care so much. Let them replay every moment trying to spot the shift. Because that shift, that was the moment you took your power back. not by proving anything, but by walking in silence, eyes forward, no explanation needed. Say it with me. I cannot be controlled. Write it in the comments. Show them, show yourself. Show the world that your silence isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of mastery. Number 5, you became the mystery their mind can't solve. And that, my friends, is exactly when everything flipped. See, when you were constantly available, texting back, explaining yourself, over-communicating, trying to fix what they kept breaking, they didn't think twice. They didn't see the value in it. You were predictable, easy to read, always there. But the moment you went silent, the moment you gave no reaction, no update, no warning, that's when their minds started spinning. That's when you stopped being a person they could control and became a mystery they couldn't understand. And nothing haunts people more than the unknown. You see, silence leaves space, and space for someone who once had access to every inch of you becomes unbearable. Because now they don't know. They can't tell what you're thinking. They can't figure out where you stand. And the same mind that once felt so confident in your emotional availability now feels lost in its own confusion. Why didn't they respond? Are they mad at me? Did they block me? Are they already seeing someone new? These questions become like static in their brain. Loud, constant, maddening. Imagine a locked door. For a long time, it was wide open. They walked in and out freely, knowing you'd always be on the other side. But now the door is shut. No explanation, no key, just silence. And suddenly, all they want, all they can think about, is what's behind it. That's the obsession. Not your voice, not your messages, not your love, but your silence. Because silence doesn't give answers. It forces them to sit with their own. That's when the mirror shows up. Because silence always becomes a mirror. They don't see you anymore. They see themselves, their choices, their attitude, the words they wish they could take back, the days they took you for granted, the passive aggression, the manipulation, the missed calls they ignored. It all comes flooding back. And now that you've stopped responding, it feels like punishment, not because you're trying to hurt them, but because you finally stopped carrying the weight of their comfort. And here's the wild part. They thought they were the ones walking away. They thought they had the upper hand. But your silence, that silence rewrites the story. Because it wasn't them that walked. It was you who stopped following. And now they're staring at your silence like it's a locked vault. And every day they don't hear from you, their minds start to spiral. What if they don't care anymore? What if they're happier without me? What if I can't fix this? These are the thoughts they tried so hard to avoid when they had your attention, but now they can't escape them. And it's funny in a cruel kind of way, because they used to know everything, your moods, your patterns, your heart. But now, even a simple scene on their message drives them insane. Why didn't you reply? Was that a goodbye? Are you ignoring them, or are you just done? That's the part that eats at them, the not knowing. The silence that once looked like peace now feels like a storm, because it's happening inside their own heads. And don't let their silence fool you. Just because they're quiet doesn't mean they're okay. Sometimes the people who say the least are the ones battling the loudest regrets. They're stalking your page, rereading old messages, searching for any sign that you still care. But you've become the question they can't answer, and that question doesn't let them sleep. Let me tell you something powerful. When someone no longer knows how to reach you, that becomes their obsession. When they realize they no longer understand you, when they can't predict your moves, when they're no longer sure if they matter, they lose control. And that mystery, that's your protection. Because while they're trying to solve the silence, you're growing in it. You're becoming untouchable in the very space they left empty. And I know some of you are thinking, but I wish they would just understand what they lost. Trust me, they're starting to. and it hurts them more that they don't know how much they've lost. They're trying to solve a puzzle they destroyed. They're trying to find meaning in the silence they created. And the most powerful part, you don't have to say a word. Say it with me. I am the mystery. Write it in the comments. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that your silence is not confusion. It's control. Number 6, you're no longer accessible, and that's what haunts them. They never thought this day would come. Not really, not deep down. They thought you'd always be just one text away, that no matter how many times they ignored your worth, confused your loyalty with weakness, or tossed you crumbs just to keep you around, you'd stay. They assumed that a simple hey could bring you back, that they could disappear, reappear, and you'd still be there like nothing happened. But now the door is shut, not slammed in anger, but quietly, peacefully, permanently, and that's what's eating them alive. Because here's what they never expected. You stopped being available. You stopped being reachable. You stopped responding to every little breadcrumb they threw your way. And for someone who once thrived on your need for their attention, that is devastating. You were the backup plan, the sure thing, the emotional safety net. They thought they had you on a leash made of your own feelings, but now they're pulling and no one's on the other end. Let's break something real wide open, my friends. People don't miss you because they suddenly grew a conscience. They miss you when they can no longer reach you. They miss the access they abused. They miss the attention they never earned. They miss being able to interrupt your healing with their confusion. And now that you've stepped away, they're haunted by the one thing they never wanted to face: your indifference. Imagine a window they used to peek through. They'd watch you, keep tabs, make sure you were still emotionally invested. One little message, one little like, one little check-in, that was enough to keep you around. And they thought they were smart, strategic, that they had you figured out. But now the window's gone, boarded up, nothing to see, no reaction, no status update, no clue. And that's when the panic sets in. Not because they love you, but because they've lost control. And that's what they hate the most. Not knowing if they still matter to you, not knowing where they stand, not knowing if someone else has taken their place. Because when you were always there, they didn't have to think, they didn't have to try. But now every moment is filled with uncertainty. Have they moved on? Are they happy without me? Did they stop caring? Those are the questions haunting them at night. That's the noise they hear in your silence. You see, when you were accessible, they were lazy. They didn't try. They didn't value your time, your effort, your presence, because they knew they could always reach you. But now that you've made yourself unavailable, not just physically but emotionally, they're realizing just how much they lost. And the worst part for them? They don't know if it's permanent. They don't know if they can come back. And that uncertainty? That's the punishment. And let me be real with you. This power you hold now didn't come easy. It came from pain. Pain from being breadcrumbed, from hoping for clarity that never came, from giving too many chances to someone who only wanted control, not connection. You learned the hard way that being accessible to the wrong person is the fastest way to lose yourself. And now that you've reclaimed your energy, your peace, your voice, they're the ones losing their minds. So let them feel it. Let them stay locked out. Let them wonder what's going on in your life. Don't give them the satisfaction of clarity, because the more they wonder, the more they regret. And the more you stay silent, the louder their own guilt becomes. Say it with me. Access denied. Write it in the comments. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that you are no longer available for people who only show up when it's convenient. Number 7, Stoics don't beg, they become unreachable. My friends, if there's one truth that separates the emotionally enslaved from the emotionally free, it's this. When the world expects you to break, a Stoic builds. When they expect you to beg, a Stoic goes silent. When they think you'll chase, a Stoic disappears into discipline. See, this isn't about ego. It's not about playing games. It's about reclaiming your power and choosing your peace over their confusion. That's what they didn't expect. They thought you'd fall apart, but you rebuilt yourself in silence. They thought you'd break down, but instead, you broke through. Let's be clear, heartbreak hurts. It rips through you like a quiet storm. It leaves you staring at the ceiling, questioning everything. It tempts you to reach out, to explain, to ask why. But that's where Stoicism steps in, not with coldness, but with clarity, not with rage, but with restraint, not with begging, but with becoming. Because the Stoic doesn't fight for a seat at a table where they were once disrespected. They get up, build their own table, and let time show who lost what. You see, most people believe that love means proving, that if it ends, you have to fight for it, that if someone walks away, it's your job to fix it. But that's a lie, a painful one, a lie that keeps you stuck chasing people who stopped choosing you a long time ago. The Stoic sees through this. The Stoic doesn't text essays, they don't beg for closure. They don't throw their dignity into a void, hoping someone will finally treat them right. They walk away quietly, completely, and with full awareness of what they bring to the table. Imagine this: a blacksmith standing in front of fire. Most people see the flames and step back. They fear the pain. But the Stoic steps closer, not to burn, but to forge, to alchemize pain into power. They use heartbreak the way a blacksmith uses heat, to shape something stronger, sharper, more focused. That's you now. You've stopped asking, "Why did they do this to me?" and started asking, "What can I build from this?" That shift alone is enough to turn grief into greatness. And here's the beauty of it. You didn't need to make noise. You didn't post dramatic quotes. You didn't try to make them jealous. You simply went silent. You leveled up quietly. You healed privately. And in that silence, you became unreachable, not out of pride, but out of progress. Because once you begin healing, truly healing, you no longer fit into the version of yourself they once knew. You become a stranger to their manipulation, a mystery to their old tactics, and that's what makes them spiral. Let me tell you something, they'll never admit it. They didn't think you'd survive without them. They thought you'd be stuck, frozen, begging for closure. But you went inward. You built discipline. You focused on your mind, your habits, your future. You let go, not because it didn't hurt, but because your peace finally mattered more than their presence. That's what being Stoic in heartbreak really is. It's not that you don't feel, it's that you don't react the way they expect. You feel everything, but you channel it. You cry, but you don't crumble. You miss them, but you don't chase. Because the chase ends when self-respect begins. And now that you've tasted that peace, you won't give it up just to be heard by someone who never listened in the first place. And sure, they might come back, they always do, but it'll be too late. Because once you've turned pain into power, once you've felt how good it is to no longer beg for crumbs, you won't even flinch when they finally remember what they lost. Say it with me. I don't beg, I build. Write it in the comments. Show them, show yourself. Show the world that you are no longer available for emotional poverty. Number 8, by the time they finally fall apart, you won't even flinch. Because while they were playing games, you were growing. While they were posting like nothing happened, you were healing in silence. While they thought you were waiting, you were evolving. And now you're no longer who you were when they left. The version of you they took for granted doesn't exist anymore. They'll regret it, they always do. But by then, you'll be too far ahead to care. That's what they never saw coming, that your silence wasn't revenge. It was rebirth. It wasn't punishment. It was power. You didn't walk away to hurt them. You walked away to honor yourself. And now that you're glowing, growing, unreachable, They're haunted by the very thing they thought they could ignore: your absence. Let them feel it. Let them fall apart. You've already risen. Now say it with me: I've moved on. Write it in the comments. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that you are done waiting, done begging, done looking back.